UEVR, has it changed VR forever? Do we now have 11,000 brand new games in virtual reality? Well, these are questions we're going to talk about in today's video, as we're going to talk about this brand new mod Injector. Now, for any of you that don't know, PreyDog, a team of amazing, intelligent people, has put together a new mod Injector called the UEVR. Now, this mod Injector is unlike any other that's existed really before it. We've had things similar to this, like with Vorpex and stuff, but this works in an entirely different way. Any game running the U4 or U5 are going to be able to be injected with this mod to a degree, but we're going to go more into that in just a little bit, and potentially be turned into some sort of VR game. Now, there's a lot of caveats that go with all of this, and there's definitely a lot to be discussed around this subject, which is why I wanted to make this video today, because really the story starts around a couple of days back where I put out a controversial tweet saying basically that I didn't think this was that great and it hadn't impressed me that much. Now, I got quite a bit of pushback and a fair bit of support on that tweet, as it was a bit of a mixture of 50-50 for me. People were saying either the same sort of thing as me, like, well, no, this really didn't hit it with me, or you have others that are incredibly passionate from the modding side of the community, which were incredibly impressed with this. Now, I really wanted to set myself back for a couple of days. I originally intended on making a video that actually accompanied what I was saying initially in that first tweet, which was the fact that I didn't think this thing had impressed me that much. But actually, the more I have tinkered with this thing, and the more people's opinions I've tried to watch and absorb, well, I'm coming to a conclusion that maybe I'm not entirely right about what I initially said, and that maybe there's a 50-50 place where this lands. But let's dive a little bit more into this whole story and talk a bit more about the UEVR mod itself. To start with, has UEVR actually changed VR forever? Well, honest opinion, no, not really. It's not going to change much. It's not this groundbreaking thing that's going to change the entirety of VR in any sense. No more so than any other mod that's ever been released. The only difference on this is it's on a wider, massive scale, in the sense that you can apply this to potentially up to 11,000 plus games. But when you realistically look at that, you know, there's not 11,000 games that are currently working with this thing. There may be in the future, but as of right now, we have, I think, around 700-ish titles that are working in this, and they vary from working really well to really poorly. And again, all of those results will be completely varied between person to person, as computers and components within each of our computers is wildly different. But if you do want to learn a little bit more, I'm going to recommend some channels at the end of this video, so make sure you check out that section if you're interested in learning more from people that honestly know more than me. I'm not a tinkerer, I'm not a modder, it's never really been my bag. I've only ever really dived into things like mods for Bone Labs, Blade and Sorcery, and a few other games. When it comes to just, you know, standard modding of games that someone else has already built and you just drop in a mod. Whereas with this, it can be as simple as just injecting UEVR directly into a game and it just working. When some people have built profiles that work really, really well, it can be as simple as that, but it can also be as complicated as having to work out all of this yourself and build out your own profiles. Now, I'm going to link down below the link to the Discord so that you can go join the Flat to VR community, which is the people behind all of this that have made this a reality. Again, I don't want to just like poop on what this is, although I don't think it's a game changer, and we will go more into that in a little bit. I also want to support them in their vision, because I know there is a ton of people out there that are hardcore into modding and are going to love this, so I still want to talk about this. Now, I want to be very clear of expectations versus reality with this. Now, expectations at the moment is everyone is overhyping the living hell out of this thing. It's changed VR forever. It's the biggest thing that's ever existed. This has given us 11,000 games. Calm down. Relax a little bit. It's not quite as cut and dry as that. Now, it kind of partially is, but it's also kind of partially not. So expectations versus reality. When you hear these sentences being said and you see little mini clips up on Twitter and Reddit and everything else, and you're like, whoa, man, oh my God, this game is now entirely VR. Simmer down. It's not quite that good. It's, I think, very good if you're into the modding scene and perhaps you've only ever dealt with things like Vorpex before. It gives you the illusion of being in a 3D space. Basically is like the #1 thing that seems to come with UEVR. And then after that are additional things like controllers being able to be used in VR, all of these sorts of things that can happen. There is a lot of games though where you're really just going to be sat there with a gamepad or with your mouse and keyboard, essentially just being in VR. Now, that is enough for a lot of people, and I completely understand that. For me personally, I need to be I want to be really a part of a VR game. Part of what makes VR magical, to me at least, is the fact that you're stepping into it. It's the same reason I've never really truly grabbed and loved a platformer in VR. There is a few exceptions to that rule. Moss, absolutely loved Moss, and really things like Astrobot. That game again grabbed me, but it was because I really fell in love with the characters within that space, and that's fine. But as a rule, I'm not massively into third-person games. I like to be the main protagonist, I like to be the main character, and I like that feeling that I get when I'm in virtual reality, and I get to embody that. So when I say expectations versus reality, I mean don't expect to go into this and have a fully fleshed VR game like the experiences that you expect to find in PCVR, or in the Quest Store, or in PSVR or PicoVR. You know, don't expect to have one of those types of experiences. Now, I believe that stuff like that could be possible in the future, and even is with a few fractional cases within this at the moment, but it is in the minority as far as I'm concerned, and really you can expect to deal with some, you know, teething issues as you're going through it. So expectations, well, this is going to give me 11,000 games in VR. Reality, it's going to let you experience some stuff in VR, and there will be the odd occasion when someone's going to build out a profile, or maybe you're the kind of tinkerer that can actually build out a profile that might give you a close to VR experience. There are going to be exceptions within this Praydog and UEVR community that are going to blow people's minds. I may even cover them myself in the future, but right now I just wanted to temper that expectation of what it is and what it can be. And really, at this point in the video, I just want to direct you to some people that will be able to give you some good tutorials on this, as I don't want to sit there and go through it myself. I'm not a tinkerer. I'm just not that way inclined. So I just think for me, really, I just wanted to give you my opinion on this, set the expectations, help you understand exactly what you're going to get from this mod, and really just what it is, because I know there's probably a lot of people that are seeing UEVR and being like, eh? What? Exactly. Me too. It's okay, don't worry about it. So yeah, to round this video off, if you're interested in learning more about this, Beardo Benjo has an incredible video on this. I'm going to leave a link to his channel down below. Gamertag VR is another passionate person that's trying to do a lot with this. Paradise Decay is another passionate VR modder as well, who just honestly knows a lot about this subject, and just all three of these guys have got great channels anyway, so go check them out if you're interested in learning a bit more about UEVR. And really, if you're ready to dive into that off the back of what I've sort of set your expectations to, then please go and have a great time. If you're a tinkerer, I think you're going to enjoy yourself, and at least now you have a bar of expectation to go in on this thing with. And if you want to learn more about there's 3 channels that you can go and learn a bunch more on. Like I say, I may cover some games from this in the future, just out of interest for myself. If I find something that I think is wow, then I will definitely be covering it. If not, then I won't be. Just like I have never really covered modding on this channel, it's not something I intend to go deep into now. But again, if something really special comes up, I'm not going to exclude myself from doing it just because I'm like, oh, it's not true VR. I mean, it's just that I would really rather the VR community focus on games made for VR. But of course, this is a big part of it as well, and I totally understand the situation. And honestly, love to anyone who's excited about this. And if you are, go and enjoy yourselves.